gonna have that sick song playing. Trump better skip the courts and go with military tribunals. Okay. Sounds like a good plan. Even though that's what the left does. We go with rioting.
Do we take up arms?
We buy more ammo.
Heck yeah. Do you want anything to drink?
I'm trying to quit.
Oh, okay. And we're live. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Welcome to Truth for the People. We are back with another episode today. In studio, we have Brandon T. Hughes.
Do you know what the T stands for?
Stands for truth.
Alrighty.
No.
Tiberius.
Yeah, Tiberius. Before we start, I want to let everybody know, I kind of do this at the beginning of every podcast, but if you're able to leave any kind of review or rating on any sort of platform that you guys listen to, please go ahead and do that. That really helps us reach other people. If you guys are on YouTube watching it or on Facebook, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a review or some comments on the video, and that kind of helps put us into the algorithm for YouTube and shows us to other people who might be interested in this kind of content.
Make sure to comment on Dennis's hat.
Yeah, leave some comments of how much you guys love this hat. Or if you hate it, then you're welcome to comment too. Also, just a reminder for anyone who wants to, you can support this podcast financially over at anchor.fm/TFTP. And you can sign up there for either a one-time donation or a monthly subscription that will really help us kind of make up for the investment that's been made to put this podcast together. Or if you guys just really love the content and you want to support us and help us grow, improve, and keep making changes and helping us in a financial way to become better, we really do appreciate it, but it is not at all necessary. With that being said, thanks for being here, Brandon.
No problem. Traveled 1 hour and 3 bags of fast food later with 4 screaming girls and a beautiful, lovely wife who took care of it all.
That's the best way to do it. Every time you come down here.
We were coming through the neighborhood leading up to your house, and every other house, the girls are like, "Whoa, that's a castle, Daddy." I'm like, just wait till we turn down Gilbert Lane.
And then you got to our house, and it wasn't the castle anymore. No, it's from that $1 million donations you guys keep giving. We're in castle now.
That's right.
Yeah,
You can tell.
Like Narcissus kept asking for the $1 million. Anywho, dude, crazy times this time around.
Yeah.
This crazy election.
It's been a nuts week. I'm a pastor of a church up in Winfield, Missouri. I do remodeling construction on the side. Dennis and I did together for a while, and then he left me for somebody else. And so I've just been struggling and floundering ever since.
More like I went on my own, but yeah. I didn't leave you for anybody.
I know. Well, yeah. We live on a 100-acre ranch up there in Winfield. It's by Troy, east of Troy, north of where we currently are. And I work the ranch, do the church, and then still do side work. So we have pretty interesting dynamic at our church. I mean, our community is about 2,500 people, all rural. And so, you know, there was probably 150 Trump signs per one Biden sign. And so even this morning in our gathering, we have about a couple hundred people at our church, you know, a lot of people just bummed and out, and because it's probably 98% like conservative, conservative values and all that stuff at our church, and majority of people voted for Trump. And so even in our small groups last week, just a lot of people, you know, because they meet on Wednesdays. So at that point they were like, what is happening? So yeah, it's been interesting. I think for me, I've been through, I don't know, I have a lot of friends that are in the like prophetic realm, like faith movement type stuff. If you guys have any clue what that is, in Christianity, there's 50,000 million denominations, and I have a lot of friends that are in the prophetic realm, and like there's all these prophecies that are out there right now. Like this is just the beginning. Like he's gonna win.
Yeah.
There's a boat with some guy on it, and the guy is, that's the one you gave me. But there's all these prophecies. I even asked a bunch of friends last night, and they're like, well, I believe this. Here's what this prophet said. This prophet says this. My wife's on that train of he's still going to win. It's all good. Like this is going to expose the evil in Washington. And it's a big, there's even these conspiracies that it's a big sting set up with the watermarks. And I don't know. I'm just at the point, for me, I'm praying and hoping he wins still. But I've come to a deep conviction in the last day or two. It's only been the day or two, especially since like Thursday, that my hope is not in Donald Trump. Like,
right.
And I think if you were to ask the average Christian that voted for him, they would say yes, but what's the fruit of what's their response been is the real proof in the pudding.
What do they actually feel inside?
Yeah. Like if your whole life and everything's just been put on hold since Tuesday, then you don't believe that Jesus is the hope for our nation. You believe Donald Trump is. And I'm confessing for the last couple of years, especially, I've put my faith and hope in the political realm, because when you have a guy in there that's on, quote, your side, it's easy to take more of a seat back and start trusting in that, especially with how vicious the media has been with Donald Trump. You start taking on the defense attorney mode for him.
Right.
And so I just, for me, have come to this deep place lately of like, I've got to get my life centered back on the gospel truth. Like, just, I have a lot to say about it, but that's kind of in general where I'm at. Not to say that I'm still hoping he's going to win.
For sure. I'm definitely in the same kind of realm. Like I only heard actually one prophecy, but also something, Kim Clement had that, Trump would be a 2-term president, which necessarily, if he loses this one and Biden becomes president, Trump could still run for one more term, technically.
He could. Yeah.
Because I think that's happened in the past.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any situation.
Ultimately, even so, like I have that same piece that you're talking about that Lisa's got, that I think he'll still end up.
You do?
Yeah, winning. And I'm not basing that on any type of prophecy or anything. It's just a piece I have inside of me. But it could also just be the piece of it doesn't matter who's president.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, we survived, and sorry for you Democrats out there, which I'm sure there's plenty of them listening to Dennis Choate's podcast, but we survived Obama and Biden for 8 years.
Yeah.
We survived Bill Clinton. And that is on a kind of a different note. That is what is mind-boggling to me, is we've already had 8 years with Biden, and not really sure why. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think if these votes are legitimate for Biden, which still I have some doubt about, because Trump, 71 million votes roughly,
something like
the
I've
most,
heard up to like 75.
The most votes any sitting president has ever had for re-election. Sitting president, meaning re-election, and so that's pretty impressive. To me, I don't understand where this crazy wave of Biden support came from, but I'm not tied into Democratic circles.
Right. Well, it's also like record black votes, record Hispanic
The media
votes,
will not point that out. Yeah, you won't hear that from the mainstream.
Record Native American Indian votes.
Yeah.
All for at least the last 60 or more years.
Yeah. Yeah. And his cabinet, if I'm not mistaken, is the most diverse, one of the most diverse cabinets in presidential history. If you were to look up what he's done for Native Americans alone, it's got to be a page and a half, just bullet point after bullet point, different funds, different grants, different restorations of different parts of it's impressive.
For sure.
But, I think where Trump got into trouble, which, look where we're at, is often leaders that have that rare personality that he has. It's like a captain of the ship type personality. They can take any kind of heat. They can turn it around for fuel. I think where he got in trouble is his narcissism and pride.
Yeah.
Which is what gets results
Mm-hmm.
and is what gets stuff done, because those kind of guys can just blast through anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like the first debate and just some of his rhetoric and probably some of the, fabrications and some of the overstretching of truth and lying he did, maybe not on huge things, I think just really ticked a lot of people off that were in the middle of the fence. Mm-hmm. I mean, look where we're at. We have Joe Biden and Donald Trump as our choices. That's a horrible place to be as a nation. Like,
yeah, also depending on your view of Trump, especially, I think a lot of people would have definitely seen that a lot more from that perspective during the first election, because they didn't quite know who Trump is. But after 4 years of him as a president, there's still going to be people who hate him. Yeah. But I think a lot more people have grown to love him. Yeah. Even though he has those shortcomings. Right.
He's done a tremendous, he's done a lot. He's gotten a lot done. I was even reading maybe a New York Times post, and also a let's see, pro-life Democratic organization. They're like 20 million strong, or they have millions of people in this organization. I thought it was an oxymoron at first. When I was first reading, I'm like, this is insane. But it's like pro-life Democrats. Like they're in favor of Biden, and they're like, all right, Joe Biden, now that you've won the presidency, we want to see you back off on your extreme abortion views. And I'm like, you just voted in a guy that says Roe v. Wade is going to be the law of the land. What do you expect? Anyway, that's a side note. But I was reading an article from them, totally opposed to Donald Trump, totally for Joe Biden, other than the abortion issue. And they even conceded multiple times in the article that Donald Trump has gotten more done for pro-life issues than any other president. Mm-hmm. And that's coming from like a Democratic organization. Yeah. So, I mean, he's gotten stuff done for sure. And as I was asking a lot of people in my age range, mid-30s, our age range, why have you all of a sudden, and Christians, former conservatives, why have you all of a sudden switched for Biden and not Trump? And the majority of the response I got is, I don't like his personality. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a really bad reason.
That's a very bad reason.
Anyway, I could talk forever on that, but that's a horrible reason. Yeah. And I'm sure that's a blank to kind of generalizing it, but when I would push them on, well, what issues do it was, a lot of it came down to, I don't like his personality. He's divisive. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And that's kind of sad and it's not just Christians. I think a lot of people vote based on what they perceive the other candidate to be like, what kind of person he is or something like that. Right. Which I think one of the key things people should be voting on is like the values and their values, and see which candidate matches up with their values. And then also based on where they stand on their political policies and that kind of stuff, and which way they're going to pull the country. Right. And like we were reading an article on here that the Biden campaign was saying, it says Biden campaign officials say he'll make good on commitments as some progressives express concern, which we all know Joe Biden's gotten weird, because he wasn't like that, I don't think, on the Obama administration, but he's gotten weirdly way more progressive.
Well, yeah, and so the way I look at it is Joe Biden's, and we could talk a long time about his mental state. Yeah. But when he's not, when he's aware of where he is and is saying, speaking cognitive sentences that make sense and stream of consciousness and able to communicate well, which is, 60% of the time. That could be a little too much of a give there, but I think where Biden won, if in fact these votes are real, if in fact, and I know that's a contested thing, this is like Al Gore and Bush times 10, in 2000, but if in fact Joe Biden did win the presidency, I would say a lot of it was in large part because of his ability to carry himself in a polite, calm, presidential manner.
Yeah.
Trump, on the other hand, is not a politician, which is why he got in the first place, because
Right.
we were sick of career politicians. Now we're voting one back in.
Like the
Makes
definition
sense.
of a career politician.
Yeah, 47 years with not a lot going on, but
Right.
I'm not scared of Biden's as much as I am the cabinet he's going to build around him.
Right.
Like, what's her name? Iman Ohar, Iman Ohar, or whatever
her name is.
Yeah, I know so much about her. Cortez, just all of these crazy, radical. I mean, they'll probably, who knows? Sanders will probably be on there in some capacity, but these are the people I'm like actually
right
scared about.
And
I mean, you look at Harris's record.
Yeah.
In California, look how well California is doing. Like,
people are leaving there left, right, and center.
yeah, and she led the witch hunt on the Brett Kavanaugh stuff. She, her record is just not good.
Right. Many people say that they make that joke of everyone's getting locked up.
Yeah.
With Kamala Harris.
Yeah. I mean, even her prison. Yeah.
But isn't it funny that it literally is like two opposites with Trump and Biden? Like, nobody's really scared of Biden, but they're scared of his cabinet.
Yeah.
But a lot of people on the other side are scared of Trump, but not his cabinet.
Yeah, they're all a bunch of yes
funny.
guys.
Yeah.
Which they're great at what they do. I mean, he's fired a lot of them, but
yeah,
Cortez with her Green New Deal thing is just I read an article when it came out a couple years ago. This looks maybe it's from Shapiro or Walsh. This looks like something like a fourth grader in the Soviet Union would have written, like back in the days of the USSR. Like, it's insane. Like, retrofit every single building to solar energy, kill all the cows, like, just absolutely, and then pushing back bringing back universal health care into the picture. And we were just kind of getting out of the Obama era stuff. And, me personally, as being employed by Chrysler for 10 years and then doing our own thing, entrepreneurially speaking, pre-Biden and Obama, my insurance costs and medical, all that stuff was so cheap. I mean, for me, it was like $20 a month for full coverage. And then to add any of my wife or my kids was like, I don't know, additional $10. And then I remember working for a company for a short season when Obamacare was at the peak. For me, it was like $200 a month. And then to add any person on top of that was like literally $200 to $400 a month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, when you take away you deprivatize or deregulate all that, like, well, not deregulate, but deprivatize it.
Yeah.
All the incentive for companies to give you a heck of a product for as cheap as possible. It just,
yeah. And
it's like asking the DMV to run our healthcare.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Everyone's
Like,
waiting in lines
why
over
in the heck would we want the government in charge of our healthcare when they can't even handle driver's licenses?
Right.
Like, we're paying more and more of our taxes for less and less apt people to do the job. Like, you're from Canada,
Yeah, I mean, living in Canada, the healthcare system there, not to trash on you guys from Canada, just their system up there. The healthcare system up there is horrible, even though it's touted over here that it's a great system. It's not. Like, let's say you have to run into the ER because you broke your arm. You're probably not going to see a doctor until, at best, like 8-9 hours after you get in there, but more likely like the next day or a couple days later. And this is the ER. It's not even like going to clinic, where you
clinic
could
wait times are longer, right?
Yeah, you could wait longer, depending on what clinic you're going to. Like, if you live in the city, if you're out in like a rural area, that they'll probably see you sooner because they don't have as many people. But everyone's like, doctors are capped at how much they can make a year, so that just reduces their incentive of even doing a good job. Not to say all doctors that are over there suck, but the majority do, just because they have no, as a doctor, I'm sure at a lot of points in your practice, you see it as a job, although a lot of them, I'm sure, care. Like they care for the people. And there are doctors out there that do the job because they care for that person, but they care for people's health. But after a while while you're working, no matter what job you get, you start looking at it as it's just a job.
Right.
And you start like, oh, I'm only making 90,000 a year. Well, forget this. Or, I've reached my ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm just going to coast from here.
Right.
And so that's how you get real low quality of healthcare.
Yeah.
And then if you need surgeries, if they're not life-threatening, you're waiting years.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then if you also need like transplants, you're waiting years, especially if it's not life-threatening, and then depending on where you are in line to receive an organ. So long, crazy waits.
That's the difference between a free economy and socialism is, and I was in 2 unions for 10 years. And so
which equate to socialism.
Yeah. So, and I'm not dissing on skilled trades unions. I think there's a place for those, but like Teamsters and dock loaders and automobile workers and grocery baggers and like the non-skilled unions especially are just a microcosm of socialism. And what would happen is you have your top performers who are outperforming guys every night, tripling their production. And then you've got a dude who produces a third of what they're producing, sits on his phone half the night. You can't find him half the night, and you want to go fire him or you want to discipline him and you're laid off for a week until you blah, 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 or corrective action. You build up this big list of corrective actions, and then the union says, don't fire him, lay him off for a week. Otherwise, it's going to go to arbitration. Well, eventually, your top performers start seeing that guy getting the same treatment, the same pay, the same benefits, even when he's not producing at all. And your incentivized workforce, it levels out to a mediocre. Why the guy who's at the top? Why should I kill myself every night?
Right.
This guy's getting the same treatment. He's not getting disciplined. He's not getting fired. And so your workforce, your incentive, your motivation, your morale, it just all levels out to a horrible, mediocre deal. And it's the same thing. Like if there's no incentive, if there's always a glass ceiling over you, there's no incentive to better yourself, to grow, to improve, to,
Right. And that's the scary part of accepting socialism. Not even just scary. It's just like not smart, unintelligible to accept socialism. And the scariest part of that is that this, as of now, so-called elect president,
Dennis is still holding on to him not being.
Yeah, I don't think he will, but that's what they're bringing.
Yeah, it's undeniable.
That's the way they're headed.
Yeah, and
by the way they talk, and
people are like, "Well, we already have a ton of socialist programs here: public education and the
right
public works and streets and roads and okay, right,
sure.
That's volunteer. That's a volunteer thing, though, on our part,
right? As
citizens, yes, I will put my taxes toward this. We vote on that stuff,
right?
To then say, like in California, though, you start forcing people. And you start handing. This is the big problem: is you starting to hand out tons of government provision and incentive to just sit on your butt and let big government take care of you. That's where the problem starts.
Yeah,
people are like, well, we haven't done socialism correctly. If we do it right, it'll work. No, that's not true. We have living case studies right now. Venezuela, everybody quotes that one. I know.
Yeah.
California, look at California right now.
Right.
The epidemic of homelessness. The rising costs of living is through the roof. The control they put on small businesses and people now because of COVID, and just, I mean, there is a like straight up epidemic of homelessness there. And California's huge, but it's close to California's homeless population is almost as big, if not bigger, than the rest of the United States homeless population combined.
Yeah.
And there's tons of footage, and there's a mini documentary coming out by PragerU from Will Witt about California and what's going on. But like you see clips of that stuff, and they're interviewing these people on the streets who are homeless, living in these massive tent cities. Which, by the way, like at some points, the bubonic plague was starting to rise up there because of the rat infestation, because of homelessness. And I think there's even there's like an app now where something to do with like poop, like you can
probably
see where somebody pooped. It's insane. Like it's just, it's crazy, dude. But they're interviewing these guys that are living on the streets, and they're like, so how come you're not working a job or, making something of your life?
Mm-hmm.
Person after person is like, why? Literally, almost verbatim, like, why would I go get a job? I get paid to sit here and shoot up all day by the government.
Right.
My uncle, like living example. I mean, he's dead now. Living example of that. My uncle robbed my grandma and parents blind for years for drug money. Heard about California. Went out there, claimed he had some mental disability, which he never had. He was smart enough to rob my grandma blind. Like, sharp dude. Never had to work a day in his life because he was constantly robbing people and stealing money. Goes out to California, gets a, quote, mental disability. They gave him a condo, a van, and food and everything he needed for the rest of his life. They found him dead.
That's insane.
A couple years ago, OD'd on drugs.
So sad.
Almost unrecognizable because, just that's happening massively.
Speaking of which, because I've seen some of this homelessness stuff when I went out on the West Coast. I was up in Seattle in the Portland area. Oregon just passed hard drug laws.
I saw something about that.
Hard drugs are legal there now.
I saw something about that.
Like, that is insane.
Which I'm sure the justification behind it is if we legalize it, it will plateau itself. Because when you make something illegal, there's more of a drive to get it and to be tied in with it, just like marijuana and just like alcohol. That's the argument. I totally disagree with it, but
right.
That's the thinking. I'm sure they could quote countries where they've done that, and the crime rate and this and that's down because when people can just get it legally, they
that's insane.
They stabilize out in their usage of it. And like, I know plenty of alcoholics, I mean, that have ruined their lives. So maybe overall use would go down, but
I mean, even going back to that, socialism thing about taking that, socialism's never really been done right, and we need to do it to prove it to the world how it's supposed to be done. No, so that's what has been brought into every civilization that went into socialism. Like, it was never done right. We're going to do it right.
Right.
I don't know what makes them think that this time it's going to work.
Yeah.
Because it never has.
Well, and it's speaking from a Christian perspective, it's a non-believer's way or the world's way of trying to bring utopia on earth, of trying to minister and care for the lost, the down and out, the poor, the broken, the hungry. And totally understand the heart behind it.
And I am all for that, ultimately, that utopian life. When you read about it or you start thinking about living in a utopia, it makes a lot of sense, and it makes you want to kind of jump on the wagon. But in this world, it just doesn't work. It doesn't, because for it to work, somebody needs to hold power. Right. And what's that saying?
To redistribute wealth.
Yeah, and absolute power
absolutely corrupts
absolutely. And so it'll never be the right way to run it.
Well, and what's more loving, to give somebody a fish or teach them how to fish?
Right.
You can continue to hand out freebies to guys like my uncle. Look what that did.
Right.
Is that really going to call them higher and bring them to a place where they can actually be self-sufficient, not only self-sufficient and survive, but to thrive and then to give out to others as well and help others? Yeah. And so, it's crazy. I don't know. It's nuts.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I don't know. I don't think the American people as a nation want to go that way. I know there is a portion of our nation that does, obviously. Yeah. Since there is support for those kind of people like AOC and Iman Omar, whatever her name is.
Well, and Bernie.
Yeah.
It's Bernie and AOC, yeah, for sure. Iman, oh my gosh. Whatever her name is.
I know it's something Omar.
The reason she scares me, and I'm not like a Islamophobe or anything like that, but she has gone on record several times challenging the notion of us spending so much on national security.
Ilhan Omar.
Which I think she had a recent race against her for the Minnesota House. Did she lose or win? I'm hoping she lost. It's a lot of red.
It looks like she won 64%.
I don't know how
25.
Lacey Johnson, a African-American dude, was running against her. I'd say that's in large part because her district is insanely Muslim.
Yeah.
Which that's fine. Muslims can have all the...
Yeah, I mean, they're welcome in America.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. She just seems extremely radical to me, especially on the national security thing.
Well, there's been talk about terrorist groups funding her through certain foundations. So it's not like them directly giving her the money, but they're sending money to a foundation, which in turn supports her, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think the reason the socialism thing is catching among millennials, which, you know, if you were to look at a Ben Shapiro rally or some, you know, speaking engagement deal, they're doing amazing things to push back our generation from falling into the lie of what socialism promises, but there's always a huge group that's opposing them. And I think the reason why 30-somethings, late 20s, 30s, early 30s, mid 30s are falling into the trap again of the lie of socialism is, if you think about our generation in America especially, we were spoiled. We were raised with hardly any discipline. We got whatever the heck we wanted. You're just spoiled. Like you got whatever you wanted. You didn't have to work a day for anything. And then, so you're trained by that. You're trained by, oh, okay, Johnny, okay, whatever you want. Don't throw a fit. Okay, here you go. You know, like, or a participation trophy. I know that's a huge, you know, cliche deal with our generation, which part of it's very true.
Right.
Just a generation that's been handed everything. So they're formed by that. They're taught by that in the home. And then they go to college. They're indoctrinated by the liberal left about how the world should work and that the government should pay off your student loans, that, you know, all these different debts that you've acquired and all these different things. It's the government's responsibility and duty and your privilege and your right for those things to be paid for and taken care of. And, you know, and so you have that whole upbringing, that whole generation that has been groomed and trained in that. And then you've got politicians like Joe Biden and Barack Obama who promise all of this stuff like, oh, we'll forgive all your college debt. Like, oh, and if you want to sit at home and not work because you can't find a job, we'll take care of you too. Like, just vote for us. You know, it's just the bait and switch. Like, and so you have a whole generation that's spoiled brats. Antifa is a great example. Like, anything that doesn't go their way, they throw a giant fit and they start throwing a tantrum and burning things down. That's like what my 5-year-old and 4-year-old and 2-year-olds do. Like,
if they had matches, they would burn things down.
Yeah, which I spank them and discipline them. Sorry, I said spank on here, but like,
how dare you?
Yeah, I love them enough to discipline them and to correct them and train them.
No, 100%. I'm on the same page with that.
Generation that's just like spoiled, entitled brats. Like that just. So I don't know. I think that's why the socialism thing is starting to become appealing, because you have a whole generation that's been molded by that in their young age, and then that's been enforced by the teaching of the universities and the politicians. Yeah.
Another thing that's kind of scary on that same kind of wavelength is something that's been introduced a little bit in the Democratic Party during the primaries with Andrew Yang, was that universal income, where the government basically but gives you an income every month. And the way he was selling it was just kind of like a paycheck, a subsidy to each household to help pay things, you know, pay for stuff. And then I think once COVID hit, it became more of a reality for people to want that.
Yeah.
And then it definitely took form, I think, in areas in other countries across the ocean. I'm assuming, from what I think I read something about, like England introducing something like that. These are just incentives to demotivate people from growing and building and creating a business and kind of making something of themselves.
That's not good.
No. It's like that whole thing you were talking about with how your uncle went to California. You're just getting, like, some people could live off of whatever that $1,500 a month per household.
And they're completely content with it because they don't have to work.
Right.
And when you don't work and produce as a nation, you lose your resources and your
right. Like, don't get me wrong,
ability to grow and
it seems appealing.
thrive.
Like,
Yeah, who wouldn't? I mean, who would? We all have lazy tendencies. Who in their right mind, if somebody came up to him on the street and said, "Here's $10,000," you're not gonna be like, "Oh, I didn't work for that."
Like, I don't want to make it sound like you tell me you're gonna give me $1,500 every month. I'm gonna tell you no in your face no matter what. No, like, it sounds appealing at first glance. You're like, wait a second, what does this mean?
Right.
But then the more you sit there and think about it and compare it to other countries that maybe have done it, or what could happen if we actually did that, you start to see the repercussions of it, and you're like, maybe we should pass on that.
Yeah. I mean, the COVID relief stuff, I took it.
Yeah, we all did.
But that's the other thing that plays into this lie of socialism is, it's free. No, it's not.
Right.
Somebody always ends up paying for it, whether it's a generation removed or your taxes the next year, or, I mean, somebody's always paying for it. And so even with our COVID relief fund, it's coming out of our next year's tax return, which we already paid taxes in. Yeah. It's like, it's never for free. Somebody's always carrying the burden. Somebody's always got to pay for it. And it's going to end up being the American people that will pay for it.
Mm-hmm. That's the scary part, even when you're thinking about it, with this pandemic and the relief and stimulus that they put into the country, our debt was obviously raised. And they're talking about another, wave of stimulus, which more debt. I don't think this country's ever really felt the repercussions of such enormous debt where you just can't pay it off.
Yeah.
And so when you live without the feeling of repercussions of something, then you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, if your hand didn't burn every time you put it on the stove, you wouldn't care if you touched the stove every time.
Right.
But since it burns, you don't do it. The same thing with here, but you're not burning every time you touch the stove, so to speak, here.
Yeah.
You just keep getting money and the debt just keeps going up.
Yeah.
But instead of just burning your hand, a generation, a couple generations down, the whole generation's going to burn, literally alive.
Yeah. My parents, they're baby boomers, and they have a great concern, not so much anymore for our generation, which they are concerned for our generation, but for their grandchildren, our kids, because they've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And that's another, just to kind of rabbit trail a little bit. That's another thing that I think the millennial generation is really bad at, is listening to the wisdom and the stories and the perspective of the older generations.
Yeah.
They throw it out. They just totally disregard it because they have zero respect, zero of the perspective of people who have.
Well, you have this feeling. You have this feeling as a younger person that, because I've been there, that
you know it all.
I already know. You don't need to tell me, or I can figure it out. I don't need your help.
Right. It's pride.
Or you don't know what you're talking about because the times we're living in now is totally different than when you were living in. And so you have no idea.
We haven't seen anything, dude.
And with some of those things, there could be some truth. For example, like, a lot of our parents haven't really experienced the internet, so maybe in that aspect, some things are different. But
a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. But fundamentally, we all deal with the same stuff.
Right.
Like, you whether the internet's there or not, you're still dealing with pride. You're still dealing with all these different sins that ultimately is what takes you down.
Yeah. We have two things on that. My grandparents were born in, 1919, 1920. So it's funny to me.
Mine too.
Yeah. It's funny to me that we are so ignorant of history or so in our own little vortex of spoiledness. Like, we really are. We are the generation, our generation and those subsequently after us have more than any other generation in the world at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And we complain and we cry and we throw fits and we burn down cities and we loot and riot when we don't get what we want. And it's like, you think about our grandparents' generations, yours especially, growing up in Romania, poor as poor can be in communism.
Yeah.
Born in 1918, they're born on a 100-acre farm, 20 of them living in a house the size of this little studio here, and World War One.
Yeah.
World War One's just, what, in 1918, just wrapping up.
Yeah.
Great Depression. World War Two. Korean War, Cold War, Vietnam. All these different things. Like, they've just lived through. My grandparents used to save everything. They had, because they knew what it was to go without. And, there's some of them still alive. Your grandma's still alive. Like, there's some of them still alive, and I can only imagine their perspective of us.
Right.
Like, they lived through hell several times over. World War after World War, famine, depressions, true depressions. Like, we're in a recession right now, or something. Some people even called it like a depression. We're in the next Great Depression. No, we're not. Like, we're
You guys are watching this.
Yeah,
we're
like
not.
we're not.
Once you can't pay your TV bill and your internet bill,
or you have to get rid of all that.
And then maybe we can start talking about it.
And so the wisdom that they can provide, that's why I like talking to my father-in-law, Lisa's, your uncle, my wife's dad, he just has such perspective.
Yeah.
Late, mid 60s, and grew up in communism, escaped Romania in the late 80s or mid 80s, and just hearing how he had to fight to survive, and to not only that, but come to America and build his life while being away from a wife and 7 kids, and working 12 hours in a factory, sleeping 4 hours a night, and then building a house for 8 hours a day. Just, we are, and so we need to be able to glean the wisdom from that generation. And, we just started a small group in our church. We have 8 of them. We're leading one, and most of the families in there around our age, all a bunch of kids our age, mid 30s. But the people that host our group are, they're definitely further ahead. They're, like early 50s, late 40s, and they have kids that are early 20s, some mid 20s. And so, at first starting out this small group, I'm like, I just want everybody my age so we can all relate. And, it's not weird that we have people that are in different seasons and don't know what we're talking about. But God's like, no, you're going to have perspective. And so they came into the picture, and they host our family. And it's just awesome because the mom and the dad, they just have so much wisdom. They pour into us. They speak into us. They're where we're going to be in 20 years. And they can look back on where we are now. Parents trying to survive with 50 kids screaming their heads off, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7, just, it's so needed. Like, we need that as a generation.
That's something I mentioned on this podcast, of having the fathers and the grandfathers of the faith in your life, where they can mentor you and speak life into you and kind of guide you along when you don't know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah, which is fairly often.
Yeah.
Like, really super often.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's key. I think we should all be building that around us. And that's awesome that you guys have that.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And that, that does bring me to another thought of just, am I listening to people that are on the political spectrum on the other side? No, I'm not.
Right.
It's created a division in my heart. I have plenty of close friends that do not align with me politically. Probably listening right now, eyes twitching, or like, oh my gosh, this dude's so lost, and I've cut them off, which is bad.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I don't know if I have friends on the other side. If I do, maybe they don't tell me.
They're scared to tell you.
But, dude, that's another thing I kind of want to talk about, is like the whole fear aspect, because people feared big time from the left when Trump was elected and became president.
Yeah.
They feared him. They thought he was going to be some dictator, fascist that was going to take over America and kill everybody and bring in the military, and it was going to be horrible, which obviously didn't happen.
Yeah.
And now let's just assume that Biden will eventually be the president. I'm sure, without a doubt, there are a lot of conservatives out there that hold a fear in their heart about, okay, what's going to happen now?
Right.
Because the Democrats, and rightfully so, have gone so much further left than even before. And obviously embracing socialism and, where's our country going to head? Are we going to end up becoming a communist country? Are we going into harder lockdowns once Biden comes in? Just something that, the pastor at my church talked about is just the perspective that we should hold as Christians is, or as believers, is that we don't put our faith in the politicians, that ultimately, God is our foundation, our bedrock, our support. He's the one that's ultimately in charge. And talk a little bit about that, because I know you were saying that you guys had your pastor was kind of challenging you guys.
Yeah.
Today.
I think I talked about this when we started, but we're a largely conservative community. Our church, out of the 200 people, let's say there's 200 people, maybe more, maybe less, but on average, out of 200, 199 voted for Trump and are ultra conservative to a degree, in varying degrees. They're up there, they're on that spectrum. And so, the fear and the anxiety, you could feel it. You could tangibly feel it in our service this morning. You could feel it in our small groups throughout the week. You could talking to people and all that. I mean, it just was a kind of a plaguing thing for a lot of people. But I think for me, and especially after today, our pastor spoke on just the Great Commission. We're finishing up the book of Mark. It took us 2 years to go through Mark. Mark 16, 14 through 20 was today. That's the last part of Mark. That's the Great Commission. And he was talking about, in Christianity, we've made conservatism and we've equated being a Republican with being Christian. Mm-hmm. We've made patriotism a fruit of the Spirit. Yeah. We have, we've made a political figure, Donald Trump, our functional savior. And he's saying, he was just challenging people, like, where is that in the Bible? Mm-hmm. And whatever happened to the verses that say Jesus is king, that he's King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Yeah. What happened to the verses in like Psalm 47 that says God is the King of all the nations. He rules over all. He's in control of all things. What happened to those verses? And what happened not only to that, what happened to our focus of bringing the gospel to the nations? And he made a point that really stung. And we've been wrestling with this as a family even the last several days as we've seen this election turn total opposite of what we thought. Because somewhat in part, we've been in our own little conservative bubble, but what if we spent the amount of time we spend on Facebook checking election results, checking Donald Trump's latest speech, his latest accomplishments, arguing with people about politics? What if we spent that amount of time and energy on saving the lost? Yeah. We would see a revival in America. Yeah. What if instead of me, I'll be real, I'll be honest, like when Trump was losing Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, I started calling everybody I know, like you and a bunch of guys that are close to me that I know all align with me politically. I'm like, what's the latest? What happened there? Did you see? Oh man, that's horrible. I can't believe that happened. Oh, he got to win there. If he does it, and we're just like doing all these projections. Where is that excitement for reaching the lost? Like, right. Hey, Dennis, who is the guy that you were talking to last week about Jesus? And how can I be praying? Oh man, he kind of backed off of it a little bit. Dang, bummer. Let's pray. But like, where is that excitement? Where is that focus? And I think if Trump, this is needed right now. Like, even if, let's say he comes back and wins, and let's pray for it. That's fine. That's good to pray for. But like, for sure, this little moment in time right now where people are fledgling and like trying to grab on to the things that they've, held on to other than Christ, it's needed. Like it's needed to break down our idolatry and our idolatry of a man in a political system. It's needed. Yeah. To shake us and to put us back on the focus of the gospel. I could be dead tomorrow. And here's a litmus test. When you talk to people in public, when you talk to me, or you talk to your friends, what's the first 20 minutes of your conversation? Do you start with political stuff and, did you hear about the election? Yeah, man, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's a litmus test. Yeah. There's one litmus test, and so, our pastor was just quoting a lot of conservative Christians with their responses like, well, Jesus was in the grave for 3 days, but then, and then they put American flags. I think you even posted one of those.
Yeah, I posted that. Even Satan thought he won until 3 days later.
And it's like, okay, he was saying how sad it is that we're equating American elections with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Somebody said, like, Satan just stole God's White House. And I'm like, dude, Donald Trump has done some good stuff, but Donald Trump is a flawed, sinful human being. And the people that are in that White House are flawed, sinful human beings. How dare you equate like God's temple, God's house with the White House? Like that is almost blasphemy. Like I'm a Republican, or I'm a conservative leaning toward Republican values, and but I'm a Christian first and foremost. And so he was just kind of kind of exposing a lot of the ways that we have equated conservative Republican viewpoints in politics with Christianity. Yeah. And so it's a huge wake up call. Whether Trump wins or not in this whole battle that's coming, it really is irrelevant. I mean, it's not irrelevant, but it's irrelevant for our day to day. How are we sharing the gospel? Yeah. And that's not to say on the flip side, we need to be voting for people to put in office that stand for biblical truth. And he wasn't saying that, but he's saying, and I agree with him. I think a lot of conservative Christians have just totally sat back, riding. We've just been riding in this parade of, we got a conservative president who's kicking butt. I don't have to do anything.
And maybe, if Biden ends up becoming the president, maybe that's God's purpose and plan ultimately is, I gave you guys maybe a president that protected Christianity and stood up for it and even spoke out about it publicly. And you guys just sat back and relaxed. Yeah.
And he was equating it to, because the part of the passage we were in was Mark 16. It's when Jesus has already risen. The disciples have been sitting back in fear and doubt and tremble, and they're scared. And Jesus comes in. What's the first thing he does? He rebukes them. He says, "Why are you not believing? Like I told you all this was going to happen. Go." And so he was just equating it to, are you hiding out and resting, or are you going and getting work done? And so like I think a lot of us as conservative Republican Christians have just been sitting back, making Donald Trump our savior and just sitting back in our homes and kind of patting ourselves from the big bad world. And it's like, Jesus is like, hello, it doesn't matter who's in office there. I'm the risen savior. I've called you to the Great Commission. Go. What are you doing with your time? Yeah. And so his challenge was, don't spend the next few months while this whole war goes on, just like, okay, gosh, I hope Donald Trump, like pray for him, pray for it to happen because we want good leaders, but don't put all your eggs in that basket of like, oh, okay, I'm just going to spend the next 3 months. Yeah. Oh, I hope Donald Trump gets, and I hope, no. You have the power and the authority and the calling as a believer to go enact change right now and be a light in your world and to see people transform.
Exactly.
Like, God forbid we wait for some politician to get in office to see change. Like, it's not going to happen like that.
That's always been a pretty toted kind of quote, so to speak, of like, change happens with you. Like, it starts down at you. Like, don't look at your politicians or leaders to change you necessarily, or society.
To let them,
Like, Jesus never came down and he's like, all right, Caesar, let's work together and make change. No, he went one person by one person.
And he spoke to the heart of what they could change in their heart patterns, their thought patterns, their actions. Right. Yeah, and so I think us as the church, as believers, is our time. It's always been our time, but now more than ever, it's our time to rise up, because the church is, what institution did Jesus leave on earth? The earth.
The church.
The church. Yeah. He birthed the church. We're the bride of Christ. Like, we, in a sense, in terms of enacting true change in a nation or anywhere you go, are the most powerful entity on earth. Yeah. We should be. We don't believe we are, because we look to other things and we don't really know who Christ is or what he did and that he lives in us. But I need a major correction on that. When he gave that sermon today, it was just kind of the capstone of what God's been.
And I know, like, a lot of people are probably thinking,
working in my heart.
But what about?
Yeah. Well, of course. Like, I mean, biblical history, God took, when the Israelites were dispersed, the 2 times they were dispersed, Assyria first and Babylon second, like, anytime that God's people got dispersed because of disobedience or rebellion, and he just sent them off and basically divorced them into the nations, and they were overtaken by pagan societies. Anytime that happened, that's where half the Old Testament stories come from, is Israel living in dispersion, Israel living outside of covenant with God, outside of the promised land. And what did God always do? He took faithful men and women who were faithful to the covenant, who still loved the Lord, and he raised them up in a pagan system to turn that system for good, for God's glory.
Yeah.
Joseph, Daniel, Moses, Abraham, the list goes on. Mm-hmm. David, like it just goes on and on and on. Of God taking chosen men and women who are seeking after him, putting them in positions of power in pagan nations to turn the nation for his glory and his purposes.
Yeah.
You can't avoid that. So when people say like, oh, you can't get involved in politics or you shouldn't let it, you're a Christian, you're not, well, you have to ignore a lot of the Bible for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So get out there and vote and sign the petitions.
So what states are Donald Trump going to win back?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. We're going to be different on this. I think my wife will get mad at me, but I don't know, dude. I'm just not at the point where
you're in like a believe in not the system necessarily, but like I guess the question here is about fraud, right? That we're about to get into
transitioning here, going from the most important message on the earth to politics is normal.
And we'll come back to the most important message.
Do you know how Doug defines politics?
How?
Side note, Doug, Lisa's oldest brother. What is politic? 2 words. Poly-tick. Poly means what? Many.
Uh-huh.
Tick is what? A blood-sucking creature. Many blood-sucking creatures. Politics.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
so dealing with blood-sucking
election
creatures.
fraud. Big surprise.
Yeah.
Wow, who would have thought?
Who would have thought election fraud?
Especially in 2020, right?
Yeah.
When the whole world seemed to
be coming to an end.
Degrade into chaos. Yeah, we're all the end time prophecies. This is like these guys' prime time to capitalize on end time prophecy teaching.
They should have told us about this.
Yeah, where did this?
Why didn't?
How did this slip under the radar?
They never mentioned COVID. What the heck?
One guy did. That guy in the basement. Remember, he sent me a while ago, months ago. Anyway.
No, what the one? No, I think
basement prophets are a dime a dozen.
Which
I was in my basement the other day, and
the Lord spoke
I haven't been out of my house in 5 years. I got my heirloom seed and my ammo, but the Lord spoke, or maybe it was a fire.
No, I think what you're talking about is that was after COVID though.
Oh,
he was talking.
Did any prophets predict COVID, or were they all just
not that I know
wrong as normal?
They got the year wrong, dude. They were saying 2012 was the end of the world, but it's 2020.
Yeah.
They got it wrong. They got the 1 and the 2 mixed up. It's 2021 is when it's actually over.
Have you ever looked up Biden's name in Hebrew? There are posts right now about that.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
tell me about it.
I'd have to look at. I feel bad if this guy's listening, but.
Well, I'm curious.
It's so.
I am
this
like
stuff,
that.
I grew up around this junk. But anyway, states.
I'm a very curious
fraud.
person.
Do you feel like there was a lot of fraud?
I do.
I was shocked because you look at Biden's social media, which social media is whatever. Mm-hmm. Look at his following compared to Trump's.
Right.
Like Trump's is like 30 million likes and followers. I understand but think about this. Trump got 70 million votes. So we could say with Facebook and Instagram combined, which I know there's probably a ton of crossover, but let's just say Trump has like 30 million followers on Facebook. Instagram, I think he has 35, like maybe
pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up. 20 million. He has, anyway, Biden on Facebook has 3 million, or maybe it's 5 million. Same thing with Instagram. Like Trump maybe has 25 million on Instagram and Biden has like 3 million. So that was a big thing that shocked my wife and I is Trump, his social media, and maybe people are just ashamed of Biden. And like, I'm not a follower of Trump. Like I really,
24.1 million followers on Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah. If you look at, so that's, let's say Instagram and Facebook combined, that's 54 million. and here's what I don't want to miss is there's probably a ton of crossover there. So people that like him. So let's just say, so there's 54 million. So what does he have on Facebook? Like it's like 30 million, 33 million, 32 million.
32 million.
So let's just say between the both, there's 55 million, and let's say the crossover is like 20 million. So that's 35 million followers on both. Okay. And that's not everybody following. That's not everybody that voted for him. I'm not following him. Mm-hmm. But that's literally half of his vote.
Yeah.
70 million. Now you go to Biden's page, it's like 5 million on Facebook and I don't know, 5 million on Instagram and 3 million on Facebook. Mm-hmm. 8 million. Let's take away 3 million for crossover. That's 5 million versus 35 million.
Yeah.
And Biden got 70 plus million popular votes.
Yeah.
That to me, I know that's like an insane, not an app. That's not a great breakdown of how things actually shook out, but it just seems like where in the world did all that come from? And this is, I'm putting all these caveats in because I know somebody could tear this apart. I'm in my own conservative bubble. I do the thing where, you know, if somebody's putting too many liberal posts about killing babies and supporting local, you know, domestic terrorists, I just unfriend them.
Yeah.
All right, stop following them. So I've created my own little conservative Republican bubble. But looking at that's actual followers. Where in the world and how in the world did that dude get the popular vote? And that's kind of like, what in the world, dude?
To add on that, it's also
what was that?
There was an article I posted, not an article, an image I posted on Facebook where it showed Joe Biden's rally. There's like a couple guys with some cars. Okay, COVID, go ahead. And then it showed Trump's rallies, which were insanely packed.
Yeah, what, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 in some of them?
Yeah, and
1,000.
Just looking at that, okay, let's say COVID. But still, those numbers were still so small for Biden. And he barely campaigned. He barely showed up here and there.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal with the COVID argument, which I know it sounds like you've already heard that one. Biden's followers will not. Here's the contradictory weird thing is Biden's. Okay, I can get it from the initial argument. Duh, Biden's followers all sit at home. They're wearing masks. They don't want to be out in public. They don't want to, and Biden probably, I'm assuming this is true. Biden probably had campaign guidelines. Mm-hmm. We're only allowing this many. You got to social distance, wear a mask. And so his constituency gets all that information via email. So of course they're not going to show up in massive numbers, but here's the interesting thing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I can see them doing that for sure.
Here's the interesting thing, though. You look at some of the celebrations now for Biden, it's Trump-sized rallies.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen them, so.
Yeah, I mean, and people are criticizing that now, like, oh, it's okay now, mm-hmm. and whatever. But so I can see both sides, but to me, it was just a shock. Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, I mean,
looking at the rally sizes and the social media presence, it's like, where in the wide world of sports did Biden's support come from?
And it's not like Biden was new and didn't have a following.
Yeah.
He's been in office for 47 years, 8 of them being as a vice president.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think there's states that are legitimately have that much voter fraud? Like,
I do. So
it's like popular vote. It's a close-ish race, right? Trump's at 70 million something and Biden's.
Yeah. Let's see here. 75,200,000 for Biden, 70,800,000 for Trump.
And that doesn't include the states that are still
right. That are still being counted.
So Trump could potentially, in terms of the popular vote at least, get close to Biden if he were to grab some of the remaining states, which there's our next argument is I don't think that's
according to the Associated Press, it's just Georgia and North Carolina left, which I've been hearing
Alaska.
And Alaska. Yeah, in Alaska, you're right. I've been hearing Georgia could take weeks to get final numbers from.
Now, what was the
insane.
page you had earlier? There were 4 states or 5 that were still.
Well, there's Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona are key states. No, there's a page here I had about Trump along with Rudy Giuliani. Maybe I closed it. There's a couple states that they're filing lawsuits in. The Trump campaign is. Here they are. He has already begun legal action in a number of states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, and Georgia so far. Could be more. But there was Rudy Giuliani did a press conference on some of the fraud that's been happening in Pennsylvania specifically, because that's where he's at. But they've been getting, obviously, calls from all these different states. I know one thing. My wife's cousin, I don't know if he posted on his Instagram that he was given a Sharpie to fill out his ballot.
Yeah.
And supposedly,
where is he at?
He lives in Chicago, but they have a house in Wisconsin as well. So I'm not sure which state he was voting in. I'm pretty sure it was in Chicago.
Yeah, and some of my in-laws, their family, like,
actually,
same thing. They reported using Sharpie, but I've read into that, and that doesn't
affect
the count. Nope.
Supposedly the computers don't read the Sharpie.
No, they do. You can research it, because here's how I know. Just from a theoretical standpoint, if they were handing out Sharpies to swing the election for Biden, then they would be losing all of Biden's votes as well. That doesn't make sense.
The idea here was that they put them more in Republican heavy areas.
Yeah.
So that it reduced the amount of Republican vote coming in.
Yeah.
Even though it eliminated some of the Democratic.
I've read some of these, which I know that's a huge contested thing, but some of these counties that I've read some of these fact checker sites that have more information on it, which I just heard Candace Owens is suing a bunch of them because of they're not true fact. They're not like, but a lot of what I've read is like the Sharpies do not negate.
Okay.
Which maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But yeah, see, yeah, there's all these. I mean, CNN, ABC.
As much as we love CNN, ballots marked with Sharpies will be counted in Arizona. What does that mean? Now that they're doing a recount, they'll count those too? Or does that mean
Sharpie does not invalidate election ballots? That's NBC, which I know these are all, and that's San Diego NBC. I know these are all super liberal, but
AZ Central use of Sharpies on Arizona ballots in court. Use of Sharpies on Arizona ballot in court as Secretary of State's office concerns a conspiracy theory.
So you think, if we were to go back to the map, do you think Biden's 75 million votes are real? How many are real? How many are not?
Heck.
We should have had my brother.
Here's the thing, though. I know your brother would be like, no.
My brother Todd.
It's all real. I think a lot of them would be real. For example, states like California, Washington, Oregon. Everyone knows those are, you can depend on those to be Democratic voting.
New York.
Why would they do voter fraud there? They don't need it. Who cares? Same with some of these.
But you're talking about the swing states.
It's these swing states that matter. And these swing states are where everything's kind of come to a point where, if you guys all remember, at the beginning, right into election night and the next day, Trump was leading in all of them.
Yeah.
And some of them by quite a bit.
But they didn't have all the votes in.
Right.
So
some of them were close, though. We're getting close. Like Michigan was pretty close.
Is this touching on the 130,000 alleged Michigan?
Yeah, Michigan.
I've heard that contested as well.
Michigan was Trump was quite ahead in Michigan, and they were getting close to the end of all their counts.
Now, I read a couple fact check articles about.
Fact check.
I'm not.
I know.
I'm just trying to broaden my.
I'm just letting people know that it's quote unquote fact checkers.
No, I know. And some of them seemed like, okay, that makes sense. And then some just seemed like that's absolute BS. So the fact check deal I read on the 130,000 dropping randomly overnight, statistically impossible that it was all for Biden unless it was a fraud.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if those got counted or whatever, but I read that was like a glitch in the system. I'm like, give me a break.
I know.
The explanation was really bad. Like there wasn't any actual data there. And the origin of the fact, the origin of that 130,000 deal though was from some Republican senator, I think. Mm-hmm. And that he recounted his statement on the 130. So he said he dropped some statement about 130,000 coming in overnight, and social media just took it and ran with it. Mm-hmm. And if you look at his page, I got to look it up, but you could look up 130,000 fact check deal or 130,000. Nonetheless, if you look at his page, he corrected himself, but the rumor spreading about the 130,000 dropping all allegedly for Biden did not stop, Mm-hmm. So if the original dude corrected himself, like, and he's a Republican guy, and that's where this whole rumor came from, then we probably should throw that out. Like, that's what I want to know in this whole thing, dude, is, yeah, I want Trump to win. I want him. I'm glad he's contesting the results, but I want there to be actual evidence. Like, there needs to be actual evidence,
Mm-hmm. There's video clips. I haven't watched it, but supposedly this is eyewitness account. At least 130,000 ballots arrived in 3 vehicles in Detroit, Michigan, all for Biden. There's part 2, part 3. I mean, this
British Virgin Islands news. Okay, sounds legit.
BIV.org.
British Virgin Islands news.
British Virgin Islands. Well, Sky News from Australia is super conservative these days.
Go to some of the dissenting ones. Let's try to have a broadened perspective here.
All right, let's go to New York Times because we love New York Times. They're our most.
Okay, let's say Michigan. Let's say the 130,000. That's still enough to, let's say that gets taken away from Biden, adding to Trump. Yeah, that would
crazy.
Swing it.
Yeah, it gets crazy close there with 130,000. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'd be enough to recount for sure, and definitely.
That's what I'm.
Put it into Trump's camp.
It kind of all hit me the other night with the conservative camp. Is I feel like we're grasping for straws.
Right.
Like, I want it to be true. I want Trump to win. I want him to be the president. I don't think he's he's by far not the perfect choice, but
correct.
With what he's done. Yeah, I want him to win. I'm glad they're contesting it. It's their constitutional right, etc. But the more I observe conservatives and start looking at some other data, nothing seems to be holding up yet. Like the watermark thing.
Yeah, I mean,
that was featured on Alex Jones. Like that already is out the door.
Depends who you ask. If you ask Joe Rogan, like 95% of the things Alex Jones says are legit.
From Joe Rogan's mouth?
Joe Rogan's mouth.
Somehow he's the ultimate arbiter of truth.
He's saying that, for example, when Alex Jones...
His double sleeve.
Hey, he's more truthful than some of these news networks.
I know. I'm just saying.
But he said he's fact-checked a lot of stuff Alex Jones says, and
like
they
the
all
homosexual frogs, that was real?
That is real.
Oh, my God.
I'm serious. People just don't understand it. They find it funny, and they're like, oh, what an idiot. But
okay anyway, but this guy was featured on Alex Jones, and it's like some random dude in a Hawaiian shirt getting interviewed, and he's like, I just talked to so-and-so from Trump's cabinet, and they say that this is true. I'm like, okay, whatever. Do you believe the watermark thing? Like, why haven't they brought that out yet?
I don't know. That's why I asked. I put it out on Facebook just to ask.
So it's stuff like that. The watermark thing, the 130,000, none of it seems to be substantial.
But what's interesting is when Rudy Giuliani came out and did his press briefing, he was saying they have over 50-something witnesses and people coming forward across from multiple different states alleging that they've seen fraud themselves. About like
on what scale? What kind of fraud?
Basically, I don't know. He didn't quite give the details because it's going to they're dropping lawsuits Monday, which for those of you who are listening, that's today.
Whoa!
But for us, since we're recording earlier, that's tomorrow.
But do you see what I mean? Like,
we don't know until the lawsuits happen.
I'm hoping, yeah.
And
I mean, I don't hope that there was fraud, but I hope that Trump gets in.
Yeah.
But because we don't have enough information right now, it just seems like the Republicans are just regurgitating the same. I was at a gathering the other night. We're all conservative. We're all, and it was just like an hour of regurgitating the same things.
Well, here's the thing.
And in the back of my mind, like, no, that's not really true. Nope, that got disproven. Nope, that's from September of 2019. Like,
here's probably the most important thing I think that we should all keep in mind. Technically, neither Trump nor Biden have been voted into as a president yet.
Right.
That doesn't happen until December.
And the media doesn't call it. The media doesn't call it. It's a prediction, or it's an assessment based on the available data.
That is an American thing.
Yeah.
During the elections, the night of the elections, in the end, usually the media calls it.
Because it's not as close of a race.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a contested thing.
It's way too close this time around.
You think?
I think so.
These states. Let's evaluate it. He would have to grab 4 states.
So
what are the ones right now that have not been attributed?
So let's go to NBC. NBC has not called Alaska.
Yeah, leave it right here. So how many points is that?
That's 3.
Trump's leading there, so Trump will get 3. That's 217.
Arizona's not called. It's too close to call.
Who's leading?
Biden is currently leading.
Okay, so
he's up 30-ish thousand votes there.
That's a lot to make up. How much is reported? 97%.
97%.
So Biden's probably going to win.
It's possible, but again, if there's voter fraud, especially with the mail-in ballots, that's been the biggest thing. Even Democrats years ago touted how fraudulent mail-in ballots can be. And so we have to keep that into account too, like post-dating ballots, things like that, ballots coming in late, all that kind of thing. So I'm not going necessarily on who's leading because even as Trump was leading with stuff getting so close, eventually went to Biden anyway. But according to NBC News, if he catches these 4 states that are left, which is Alaska, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, Pennsylvania would be the last one he needs that has been known for voter fraud, has a history of voter fraud, and that they're probably the number 1 sought after state right now and with the lawsuits and all that.
Yeah.
Which it's so close. It's 0.7%.
So he would need to win all the open ones right now, even though he's not leading in 2 of them, right?
Right.
And he would need to take back Arizona or something else, or Pennsylvania or something else.
Yeah.
That's not close. I mean, it's close in my opinion. It's close, but not super close. Like if you look at, Al Gore and George Bush in 2000, it literally came down to like 300 something votes. That's close.
Yeah, in one state.
In one state. This is like he would need to grab all the remaining states, which he's not leading in half of them, and then he would need to swing back one of the states where he's losing by like 20,000+.
Yeah.
Not 500 or 319 or 3 whatever Gore and Bush was.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy
Originally
though?
1,500.
Wouldn't it be crazy though if a ton of voter fraud was caught? I'm not saying it is, but
I feel like
that's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only option on the table for him to get in for anything that happened. Don't you think?
Yeah,
because
at this point,
he grabs. Let's say he grabs Alaska. Somehow he grabs Arizona, even though 7% of the count's in, which he still could. Georgia, hover over that one. He grabs. Is he leading in Georgia?
Nope. No.
So he'd have to
2% off.
He'd have to grab Georgia and then North Carolina. Is he leading there?
Yeah,
no?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. By 2%.
So he would have to grab.
See, 2%. 2%'s more of a distance between the two.
How many are in? 90 what?
98%.
So okay, he may have North Carolina. he has to grab Arizona and Georgia, which that seems like a little bit more of an uphill battle because you're talking, what is it in Georgia? How many thousands is he down? I can't see that well.
10,000.
And then in Arizona, how many is he down? 20?
I think we were looking at about 30,000.
So he has to.
No, 20. You're right, 20,000.
Can 20,000 be made up when there's 97% in? Maybe.
Shoot, I can't do that math. Maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, I think his only shot is the voter fraud.
Yeah. Which we know.
Even if he won all four of these, dude.
We know it happens. Voter fraud is real.
It would have to be on a mass scale, though.
It's just how big is it? Yeah.
He'd have to win Alaska, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, which he's losing in 2 of those now. And then he'd have to swing back Pennsylvania to what, 20,000 price tag, or however many he's down.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, way more.
30, 40.
43,000.
Before, yeah. You know what we need to keep in mind, though?
The prophecy of...
No. The Democrats said we need to win this election at all costs.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do we commit fraud to win?
So, sorry, Democratic friends. This is another reason why I can't fully comprehend, especially for Christian, why you can vote Democrat, which you're like, well, you voted Trump. He's a horrible, evil man. Okay, kudos, but to a degree. But yeah, the Democrats, at least the radical left, have proven to me that they will not stop at anything anymore. Like, they're above the law. Just look at the rioting and destruction and killing of lots of innocent people who they've allegedly are supposed to be standing up for. But I think, they've at least I wouldn't say moderate or middle of the road Democrats or maybe regular Democrats, but there is a portion of radical leftists that have totally destroyed big parts of our nation. Yeah. And for me, the real deal happened in 2015 or 2016, the presidential race there, when, Hillary Clinton's getting, James Comey comes out with the FBI and gives a laundry list of things she's done that are illegal, like for an hour straight. Just, and here she violated this, deal with uncovering this, and, just on and on and on and on. And then at the end of it, everyone's looking at each other like, wow, she's actually going to be put behind bars. And he's like, but we don't, recommend any further prosecution. We don't recommend any further action to take her out, and you're just like, what in the world? Like, to me, that's when the elites, quote, elites, or whatever you want to call them, the political career politicians on both sides, especially the left, were above law and justice. That's when, to me, it was the death blow to any American justice for those in leadership. And people can probably say, well, Trump's the same. He got away with whatever. I don't know how much he's done that's illegal as a president, but
the FBI hasn't listed anything. Yeah. So at least
that to me is
that degree.
That to me is why I could leave the door open that this wasn't a stolen election. But I'm skeptical right now, just because I guess I'm reeling a little bit still, like, is this really real? And then secondly, just like, okay, I'm the type of guy that I don't like to mull over and sit around on stuff. Let's just move forward and get on with the real mission. Yeah. But I have a lot of friends that are like, well, we need to be interceding.
No, I mean, we do need to be interceding. We need to be praying. And even if Joe Biden wins, we need to pray for him, for God to hold him back from his evil missions. No, just more or less to give him wisdom and hopefully guide him in the right direction. Yeah. Whatever that means. But have
you seen any of these prophecies shake out yet? Because I felt like there were...
I haven't been really following them, to be honest. Just that one I sent
of them, and they're like...
It's just that one I sent you that I've listened to. Yeah. I haven't listened to any of the other ones, if there were any other ones. Just the one with the boats.
This will either restore my hope and faith and prophecies or further destroy it. It would take a lot to restore it. It would probably restore it to a degree.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. Till December, like we were saying, we don't know. I mean, anything can happen till then.
Yeah.
Heck, maybe the electoral colleges are like, screw this, we're voting for Trump.
I doubt that.
No, I don't think that's legally allowed constitutionally.
I will say this: if he does get in after all this, there will definitely be a civil war.
If Trump gets
A
in.
mini one, at least. I mean, think about it. If
Yeah.
they were already promising rioting and destruction for him getting in legally,
Yeah.
or for him winning, just plain winning the vote, then for
Yeah.
sure there'll be some major
definitely crossed my mind.
repercussion. No, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Sadly,
Yeah.
that's something we do need to be praying against as well. That was another thing that bothered me a little bit, is some of the, Christians on the Democratic side that voted whatever, as Biden's winning or has won, they're kind of trickling out a lot of stuff on Facebook, like, let's be nice to each other. Let's be blah, blah, which, okay, that's great. That's good. But where was that when the rioting and the spewing of hatred and destruction to cities, where was that? I guess it's only when it's convenient for.
Yeah, it seems to always be that way.
Whoa.
For those of you listening. No, that seems to definitely always kind of be the thing where, like, if it fits your side, your narrative, then you push, let's be nice. Which I'm trying not to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to be like, okay, truthfully and honestly, if it turns out that in a truthful and honest way, Biden did win, like, as much as I hate it, I will accept him as my president, because this is America. This is a place that still has democracy. We can still vote and make our voice heard, which is, the most important thing that we have. And I will still continue to support it until it starts turning a different way. And I will speak out my mind against things that I think are wrong.
Yeah.
Just because I know the place that my parents came from and my family came from, which is a place started off as some sort of socialism, which very quickly turns to communism, which is basically, they're just the same thing.
For all the listeners out there, where was that?
Good old Romania. I mean, that was during the height of communism in the world.
Yeah.
You had Hitler around those times. You had Stalin.
Mussolini.
Yeah. Communism was rampant.
Mao in China.
Area. Yeah. It seems like
from what
China
I heard,
always been-
Ceausescu took a lot of notes from him, or visit. That's what kind of turned Ceausescu a little more radical.
Yeah.
Was visiting with him a lot. I thought I read some stuff about that.
Yeah. I mean, for all I know, you probably know more about Ceausescu than I do.
No, not really.
Because I don't know that much about him, and I should probably study it more. One thing I did hear, though, which is, getting into the conspiracy theory stuff.
Here we go. Open it up.
Ceausescu actually declined to basically come on board and align with globalism. And that's why there's this theory that the globalists, or these elites, kind of started the revolution in Romania to overthrow Ceausescu because he wouldn't join or align with globalism. Because he actually wanted to become, which they did become, debt-free. Romania was the first country, I think, to become debt-free. But it was at the cost of the people. I mean, everyone got super poor. You're waiting in food lines, crazy rations. But it was kind of crazy to hear that. So he wanted to become debt-free, and I think he was kind of on the mindset, which most communists are, to become one of the most powerful countries in the world. And you kind of can't do that when you're aligning with globalists.
Yeah.
So if that's true, it makes sense. If it's not, people just got sick of communism and got rid of them.
Have you heard any of your parents' views on all this? I'm sure.
With
They're
the
freaking
elections?
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're hardcore into, like, that there's fraud. There's no way Biden won. I mean, they're looking at, like, the rallies as well, and they're like, how can somebody with tens or even hundreds of thousands of people showing up to our rallies be defeated by some dude who barely even campaigned? And I mean, they're reading articles too. listening to Giuliani talking, and they're like, all right, they're going to sue them. Everyone's got this hope that Trump's still coming back, which
including you.
I do, which that's the ultimate American underdog story right there. He comes back and he wins it.
And then the world falls apart.
No, I think if Trump would win it by coming back, like you're saying, I do see crazy civil unrest happening, but then I see the American military stepping in, putting a stop to it.
Further proving that he's a fascist.
In that sense, I think he'd rightfully so stop it from destroying our country.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all down for protest, and then protest all you want. Heck, I would protest if Biden won and
Did you see
it was done fraudulently. You know,
how would you know though at that point?
Just based on, I think it'd be based more on if there wasn't like concrete evidence in regards to like maybe documentation of it, or probably based more on eyewitness accounts and stuff like that. But that's kind of hard to tell because people can always make stuff up. I don't know. It's so hard to believe Biden won.
I know.
It's just not even from a bias standpoint, just from a looking at these things that we've discussed.
Yeah.
The followership on social media, the campaign rally attendance, donations, the amount of votes that Trump won. Isn't it a thing that like the main reason Democrats still have the ability to win their presidencies is because they have the majority of the black vote and Hispanic vote?
Yeah, but I think Trump grabbed 20, 30, 15% on different I can't remember, for black, Hispanic, and I can't remember, but I mean, like I don't know if that's what gives them the win all the time, but I mean that's kind of
a big one.
That's kind of been a historical connection, at least in recent history, is that the Democrats typically garner the minority vote.
I mean, add that to the formula or to the equation. How likely? I mean, how realistic did Biden win this in a legal way? With all that added up, it just sounds too good to be true.
Or it's that you and I have been so stuck in a conservative bubble that we didn't realize the momentum or he had a silent majority like we did for Trump in 2016.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, remember when Trump won? It was like...
But like, why would Biden have a silent majority?
That seems...
because...
Especially with the way the left has been, they're pretty outspoken and pretty
loud
vicious.
And proud is on the left.
Yeah, true.
It's more like, how dare you wear that MAGA hat?
The way I've been trying to make sense of it in my mind is there was a silent majority potentially because as sad as it is, the Christian church was pretty split on this.
That is true.
Not maybe maybe not totally 50-50, maybe like 30-70, but there are a ton of Christian organizations that are like Christian, Democratic Christians, pro-life for Biden. And I know tons of friends that voted for Biden because they'll look at Trump and say, Christians are only voting for Trump because of one issue, abortion versus pro-life. They're only voting for him because of pro-life. Mm-hmm. And so then they'll make this kind of platform. You can read it anywhere on their, who is it? It's the Democratic Christians, whatever. There's a huge movement of that. They say, you know what? Yeah, Joe Biden is pro-abortion, but he's pro-life in all the other areas that Trump's not. So legal immigration, he's not about putting kids in cages and separating them from their parents. He's pro-immigrant. He's pro everything after birth. And so they make this jump and this leap and this justification like, well, Biden's technically, if we want to hit the spectrum of everything that could be included in pro-life, Biden's, quote, more pro-life than Trump.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of jump that they've made because Trump is so egregious and so not likable. They're like, I know he's pro-life, but he's horrible. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the Democratic camp and just kind of make this blanket statement that Biden's pro-life too, just after birth.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge demographic of people that fit into that category. I mean, we're talking like 20 million just for the pro-life people for Biden. That's an actual organization, which seems like a total oxymoron. But
yeah,
coming from the guy who's cool with, post-birth abortions and late-term abortions and Roe v. Wade being the law of the land, the article I read today, they're like, good job, Biden. We're happy for you. Now you need to, contend with us, and we want to make sure that you become more pro-life in your abortion stance. And I'm just like, you're foolish. Like, you just voted in the most radically pro-abortion president in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could get into that, but like, I think there's a big constituent of a silent somewhat majority there that voted for Biden just because of that justification. And I know, talking from almost dozens of friends, that's kind of their view and platform. And so, you look at Facebook and Instagram, his followers, well, all those people are not probably going to follow him because I don't know if there's an embarrassment or they just don't want to be totally associated with him, but they're still going to vote for Biden. I think that could explain maybe some of this just like random, holy crap, where did that come from? You know? Which, just from an ideological standpoint, to tag back to that whole thing, to me, that's a frustrating movement that they can say, like, yeah, we can support Biden because he's pro-life here, here, and here, even though he's okay with murdering children. That just doesn't fly with me. I'm too black and white for that. I can't do the gray.
Right.
I'm too black and white. He's in agreement with literally murdering children. Even if you take it away from the quote arguable stages of life of like month or 2 month in, which even at a few weeks, you can make a pretty dang good scientific argument that that's a human being and that's life. And there's unique DNA forming and brain and lungs and ability to smile and heartbeats. That's like super early on, several weeks in. Even if you took away that, Biden is okay with killing a fully developed baby in the womb and outside of the womb if it's a botched abortion.
Yeah.
So this whole Christian movement, or this whole pro-life movement for Biden and the Democrats is BS.
Yeah.
Because
it's just a way to justify.
You're justifying evil with some candy-coated like reality, like, oh, but he, here's the breakdown of that whole argument. Well, Biden's pro-life with immigrants and with social services. Yeah. Okay.
But that's not actually pro-life.
Right. He's okay with
those people don't die.
Yeah. Trump is not killing Trump by taking away some social services for women's health care that's associated with abortion. That's why he's doing it.
Right.
Title X, research it. That's not Trump literally like killing the pregnant moms. Like, you don't have the ability to go get consultation for some pads or for some whatever women need.
Yeah.
Like, that's not Trump like taking a syringe or some tool to like rip the lady's head off like abortions are. Like, he's not literally killing people by doing that.
Yeah.
So this whole reasoning is just totally out of line with like all reality and logic. Like, Biden is literally okay with a baby being killed, full grown baby.
Yeah.
Like killing it, not leaving it without some food stamps or like, no, you can't justify it. Like, I would challenge anybody to justify that. Like, you just can't.
You can't. There's no way.
So I think that could explain where this random majority for Biden's coming from.
Possibly.
If these are actual votes, right?
Yeah, and if it's that big, of a so-called majority.
Well, from the articles I've read with the pro-life Democrats, it's 20 million strong. 70 what? How many? 75 million. Take that away, Trump wins. That's 65 million, or that's 55 million.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not. I guess it's not a majority of the 75 million.
True,
but
Yeah,
a
you still
large
have to say
portion.
where did 55 million come from?
Yeah. Which, okay, let's say there's another radical 20 million out there. Radical leftists, you know. I mean, I don't know, dude. We're living in crazy times.
Yeah,
2020's been nuts. COVID,
a little bit.
dealing with COVID. I know my pastor said starting last year, November, he was like, this year's going to be a year of no complaining.
He said that for 2020?
Yeah, for us, like for our church, like we're not complaining.
What a challenge.
And then COVID hit the beginning of the year. And now the elections.
Wow.
It's just been nuts, man. He's like, some of us have done okay. He's like, but we probably all really suck at it. Which, that is hard. I mean, I kind of sat there and looked at it, and I wanted at first to say, well, I didn't complain that much. I don't feel like I complained. But I could definitely see myself complaining, probably, especially with this election stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want Biden to win.
Yeah.
I want Trump to win, just like majority of conservatives. And for all the same reasons. I don't know, dude. It's hard to believe, but we have till December, the Electoral College votes. There's going to be litigations, obviously.
What do you think Christians should do between now and then? It's a trap question.
It's a trap question. We're getting trapped in. Dude, honestly, I think continue living life. Oppose mask mandates. Just kidding. No, just
Don't
continue.
even get me started.
Just continue living your life. Obviously, from a biblical standpoint, from a biblical view. Like, the things you were mentioning. Like, don't forget, because this is the definition of being caught up in the weeds. You lose all focus on what's above you,
Yeah.
the Lord, what He's done for you, and what He's asked us to do.
Right.
And we start focusing on these earthly issues that, 10 years from now, it's not going to be a problem.
Right.
Whatever's going on right now.
Yeah.
But our salvation is eternal.
Right.
And we either have salvation, like we either have a salvation or we don't. And then we either share it with others or we don't.
Right.
And that falls on us.
Yeah.
And so that's I'm in 100% agreement with you. And it's something that I failed at a lot. Is
Same,
just
dude.
like preaching, and not necessarily preaching like, hey, you got to be a believer, but just living my life as a believer,
Proclaiming the gospel
through my
actions
acts
and word.
and then word, and just talking with people, trying to get to know them, understanding what their issues may be,
Yeah.
and then seeing if I can help them in any way, pray for them in any way, and thus doing my acts, so to speak, or acting as a Christian, where they can be like, hey, there's something different about you. What is it?
Right.
And it just opens up that conversation. And then praying, obviously,
Yeah.
that's key. Whether it's in this moment praying for, hey, Lord, give, Trump victory. I know that he was the one you chose to be our leader up till this point. I'm praying that he continue be our leader, but if your will is that, Joe Biden becomes our leader, then so be it, and just accept it.
Right.
I know it sucks. The left doesn't accept it, and they start burning down cities for it.
Right.
But that's not who we are as Christians.
That's where we have to stay above reproach.
Yeah, and to a degree, it makes sense. Like, hey, if they can do it, we're gonna burn cities down too.
Yeah.
And
I'm not doing that for the record.
I know. I'm just saying, in an earthly, fleshly sense,
Yeah.
you can have an argument there.
Right.
We're pissed off. You guys stole the election. We're gonna go peacefully protest. And in that perspective, you can justify that. But if you're a believer, that's not. We know that God's ultimately in control.
Yeah.
And the fact that Joe Biden ends up becoming our president, if that's the case, we need to accept that. And we need to just continue focusing on the Lord.
And how much more is it if these 75 million are true votes, how much more is that a wake-up call that half of our nation is okay with some of what he stands for. I know there's solid Christians that voted for him based on certain principles that he stands for, just as they're solid, but they don't agree with everything else with him, maybe nor his character or whatever. But same as Christians with Trump. That's kind of the catch. That's kind of the catch-22 is. But it just this whole thing right here, you know, these two men, the fact that these are our two elected choices for the presidency is a sad marker for our nation. And especially if Biden gets in, I'm saying that for Trump because of just his character. You can't deny that he has some character flaw, some major character flaws. He does get stuff done, but
especially prior to his presidency.
Well, yeah, he's definitely. You would have to be pretty willfully ignorant to say that he's not worked on some of that. But he's still, just look at the debate. He's still got issues.
What's that saying? Like, you can't straighten an old crooked tree or something like that.
Yeah,
you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
And if
to a degree, he's still going to be who he is. Right. To a degree.
And if Biden gets in, it's like I was saying, it's just should serve as a sign for us as believers to really wake up. Because if there's that many people that are okay with, which apparently there's 20 million pro-life Democrats that aren't. Even though they voted a man in who's going to make that the law of the land.
Yeah.
But if there's that many people that are okay with a baby being killed pre or post birth, right after birth or right before, that's horrible. Like that should wake us up to bring the true solution. This is what our pastor talked about today. Like, we have the answer. We have the cure for the brokenness in our world. It's not policy, not saying we should stay away from that, but we have the true cure, which is heart change through the gospel of Jesus Christ. Him moving on a hardened, dead heart that's living in darkness. I can't change that, but I can be a tool and a vessel to bring that change.
For sure.
That's where the battle's going to be won. It's not going to be, you've seen this. You argue with somebody from a logical standpoint, or you bring out all these different reasons of why you should believe in God, or why you should be pro-life, or why you should. It just seems to fortify where their stance. They build up even thicker walls. They dig their feet in even more. Mm-hmm. Not always. Sometimes that stuff helps if it can be done in a respectful, non-Facebook engagement like this. But the true change will come when hearts are changed, and that comes through prayer and breaking down strongholds of evil and darkness. And there may be non-believers listening. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, just the state of the human heart naturally is sinful, and people may disagree with that. But if you've had a kid for more than 5 seconds, you know that like we're just natural proclivity towards sin and selfishness and disobedience and recklessness. And so that can only be changed through a true heart change, which comes, in my opinion, as a Christian, it comes through the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit moving on you to change your heart. And so as we think about our nation, we need to be praying and fasting for salvation of souls, not political party change, not a change in your alignment of your party, but a change in alignment of who you serve.
Yeah.
For real. Like, I want to get back to that. Lisa and I were just talking about that on the way over. Like, we just want to get back to that place where my 2 minutes with the cashier at the grocery store is not about, did you hear about the election? Yeah, crazy. 2020. Like, it's more like, hey, is there something I can pray for you today? Or I just want to tell you about Jesus. Like, he really, that could be my only 2 minutes with that kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And am I just going to give him a little political pep talk and see you later? Yeah, America. Or leave him with some seed that could turn into something that will determine his eternal outcome. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's definitely something that we lose focus on a lot.
Yeah. I hear you for sure.
And I've heard so many people talk about it and mention it. And I've talked about it and mentioned it a lot.
Yeah, I'm bad at it too. I mean, I'm a pastor.
Same with me, and I'm not a pastor. I don't think there's many people out there that are good at it. Yeah. There's very few.
Yeah. There's a few.
And
I
that
know.
almost makes you question, like, not necessarily like your salvation, but what does God think of me?
And where's your heart? Where's your devotion?
Yeah. Because, we've been called to, there's that, the Great Commission, we've been called to spread the word.
Right.
And ultimately, when you find something good, regardless of what it is, you tell everyone around you what you found. Like, hey, I found gold in my backyard.
Right.
Come help me dig it out, or you can have some too.
Yeah, the thing you value most is that which you talk about and focus on most.
And what is that we talk about most? You listeners out there. It's a challenge. It's just a challenge out to you guys just as much as it is to us here. Todd White has kind of brought that to my attention at times, where he would just sit there and he was talking about watching people walk by. He was somewhere in Israel.
Yeah.
And he's like, he just started crying, thinking about all these lost souls. And he's like, what can I do for them? Like, can I just, am I just going to go live my life and not care?
Yeah.
But all these souls are going to end up being lost and going to hell.
Right.
Well, with that being said, you guys out there, keep on praying. Don't lose hope. Trump could still win.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
I
had to say that.
I would encourage believers to make the most of their time, because the days are evil. So then do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not get drunk on wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking in one another psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, and spreading the word for real.
Amen.
Get back to the right focus. This is a shaking up. 2020 has been a year of shaking for the church. This is no different. Let it shake away what needs to be shaken away, and submit to what the Lord is trying to refine out of you and discipline out of you. For me, it's my political religion.
Yeah.
I have several friends I need to go make amends with, because I've allowed politics to divide my heart from them. And I have a lot of people that I need to start to reach out, that I see on a daily basis in my community. We all go to the same stores for grocery. There's just people that God has put in front of us, that are in front of us, that we can be intentionally reaching.
Yeah.
And what are we going to, when we give an answer for what we did with the time we had on Judgment Days, and be like, well, I campaigned, I made sure them votes weren't fraudulent. Or, like, I wore my Make America Great Again hat.
Just
every
to let
day.
them know. Even after Biden won. The next 10 years. Well, you guys heard it here.
Do what?
I said, you guys heard it here first.
That's right. We the peeps.
We the people, spread the word. Let Jesus be known in the land.
That's right.
Tell those people, man. Maybe we can turn this country red again.
Yes, sir.
With the blood of Jesus.
Ooh, that's the red we need.
That's the real red we need. Let that wash our country.
That's right.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See you, Crest out.
Peace out.